Imagine sitting on a plane, minding your own business, when a flight attendant suddenly slaps a teenage passenger across the face. The cabin goes silent, cameras come out, and no one realizes that boy is the son of a powerful billionaire. Within hours, one phone call turns the skies upside down, and by the end of the week, the entire airline collapses. This isn't just a story about a slap. It's about respect, power, and the price of arrogance. Picture this. A bright afternoon at the airport, passengers rushing to their gates, flight announcements echoing to the terminal, and families saying their goodbyes. Among the crowd was a young teenager named Jordan Carter. At first glance, he looked like any ordinary 16-year-old. He wore a plain black hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. He carried a backpack slung over one shoulder and a phone in his hand, just like most kids his age. But what no one around him realized was that Jordan was far from ordinary. Jordan was the only son of Malcolm Carter, one of the richest and most powerful businessmen in the world. Malcolm Carter was a billionaire whose empire stretched across technology, real estate, energy, and even aviation. People who knew him described him as brilliant, ruthless in business, but deeply protective of his family. However, Malcolm had raised Jordan to live humbly. Jordan wasn't the type to flaunt his wealth or brag about his last name. Most of the time, strangers had no idea who he really was, and he preferred it that way. On this day, Jordan was traveling alone. His father had trusted the airline to take care of him during the short flight. Jordan had a valid first-class ticket in his pocket and a polite smile on his face as he boarded the plane. To him, it was just another trip, a routine flight that would get him to his destination quickly and comfortably. When Jordan stepped into first class, a few passengers glanced at him curiously. A teenager in first class wasn't something you saw every day. Some thought maybe his parents were already seated. Others assumed he came from a wealthy family. But no one could have guessed that the quiet boy sliding into a seat had connections powerful enough to change the future of the very airline they were flying with. Jordan settled in, pulling out his headphones and adjusting in his seat. He wasn't interested in attracting attention. He just wanted to relax, maybe watch a movie, and land without any drama. Unfortunately, that peaceful plan was about to be shattered, because sitting just a few feet away was a flight attendant who didn't see Jordan as a valued passenger. She saw him as someone who didn't belong, and her assumptions would soon trigger a chain of events that the entire world would hear about. From the very moment Jordan settled into his seat, the mood shifted. The flight attendant assigned to first class, Ms. Reynolds, walked the aisle with a polished smile for every passenger, except him. She offered champagne to the suited businessman in row 1, greeted the elderly couple with warmth, and bent down kindly to a woman traveling with her baby. But when her eyes landed on Jordan, her expression hardened. Her voice, once sweet and professional, turned sharp. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" she asked, eyeing his hoodie and backpack as if they didn't belong in the luxury section. Jordan politely replied, "Yes, ma'am, this is my seat," and showed her his boarding pass. She snatched the ticket, gave it a quick glance, then returned it with a sigh. "Fine, just don't cause trouble." Jordan felt his cheeks flush but stayed calm. He had been raised to remain respectful, even when others weren't. Still, the difference in her tone was clear. While other passengers received smiles and gentle service, Jordan was met with suspicion and coldness. As the flight progressed, it only got worse. When Jordan quietly asked for water, Ms. Reynolds didn't just delay. She rolled her eyes and snapped, "You'll have to wait. I have other passengers who actually need me." Several people nearby raised their brows, surprised at her rudeness, but no one spoke up. Jordan shifted uncomfortably, trying not to let it bother him. He told himself she was just having a bad day. But deep down, he knew this wasn't about her mood, it was about him. She had decided, from the second she saw him, that he didn't belong in first class. And as much as Jordan tried to ignore it, Ms. Reynolds wasn't done making him feel small. The tension in the cabin built quietly, like a storm waiting to break. Jordan tried his best to ignore Ms. Reynolds' harsh tone, but her hostility grew more obvious with every small interaction. Some passengers exchanged uneasy glances, whispering to each other. They could tell something wasn't right. Then it happened. Jordan had been adjusting in his seat reaching down to grab his phone that had slipped from his lap. As he bent over, Ms. Reynolds stormed over with her arms crossed. "Can you sit still for once?" she snapped. "You're disturbing everyone around you." Jordan looked up, startled. "I'm sorry, I just dropped my phone," he said softly. But instead of letting it go, she leaned closer, her voice dripping with disdain. "You need to learn some respect." And before anyone could stop her, she raised her hand and slapped him across the face. The sharp sound echoed through the first-class cabin like a gunshot. Gasps filled the air. A mother clutched her child closer. The businessman in the aisle seat jumped to his feet in outrage. Phones came out instantly, recording the unbelievable scene. Jordan froze. His cheeks stung, his ears rang, and his heart pounded in shock. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. He had never been humiliated like this in public. "You did not just hit that boy," one passenger shouted. Another added, "This is abuse." But Ms. Reynolds stood her ground, glaring at Jordan as though he had deserved it. "Someone had to teach him how to behave," she said coldly. She didn't know it yet, but in that single moment, her career, her reputation, and the very future of the airline had just been destroyed. Because the boy she slapped wasn't just any passenger. He was Malcolm Carter's son. Jordan's hands trembled as he reached for his phone. His face still burned from the slap, but his voice was calm when his father picked up. "Dad," he whispered, trying not to let his emotions spill over, "a flight attendant just hit me." There was silence on the other end. Malcolm Carter, a man known for his iron composure in billion-dollar boardrooms, took a deep breath before speaking. His words were quiet, but they carried weight. "Stay where you are, son. I'll handle this." Jordan felt a wave of relief, but the cabin around him buzzed with tension. Other passengers whispered in disbelief. Many had captured the slap on their phones, and within minutes, clips began appearing on social media. The shocking video spread like wildfire, gaining thousands of views in real time. Meanwhile, Malcolm was already moving pieces behind the scenes. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply made calls. One to his legal team. One to his public relations advisors. One to government officials he had worked with for years. On the ground, the airline's headquarters erupted into chaos. The CEO was woken up in the middle of the night by his ringing phone. "Do you understand what just happened on one of your planes?" a lawyer's voice demanded. "Your staff assaulted the son of Malcolm Carter. And trust me, he's watching." The CEO's stomach dropped. He knew the airline had no chance of covering this up, not with video evidence already circulating, not with passengers willing to testify, and definitely not with Malcolm Carter involved. One father's fury, powered by global influence, was about to bring an entire empire crashing down. By the time the plane touched down, chaos was waiting at the gate. Police officers, reporters, and airline officials had gathered, alerted by the viral storm that had erupted online. As soon as the doors opened, passengers spilled out, shaking their heads and showing their phones to anyone who would listen. The clip of Ms. Reynolds slapping Jordan was already trending worldwide. Ms. Reynolds, once so confident in her authority, was escorted off the plane in handcuffs. She tried to defend herself, insisting, "I was just doing my job," but no one believed her. The evidence was undeniable, and the public had already judged her actions. Within hours, the airline became the center of global outrage. Hashtags calling for boycotts trended across social media. News channels replayed the video on loop. People demanded accountability, not just for Jordan, but for every passenger who had ever been mistreated. The very next day, Malcolm Carter appeared before cameras, standing tall beside his son. His words were calm but carried power. "This isn't only about my child," he said firmly. "This is about dignity. No one should ever be disrespected or harmed because of who they are, or who people assume they are." Investors panicked and pulled out. Governments launched investigations. Lawsuits piled up. Within weeks, the airline's reputation collapsed, and with it, the company itself. Decades of business, billions in assets, thousands of jobs, wiped away by one reckless act in the skies. Jordan, though shaken, walked away with his head held high. He had been humiliated, yes, but he had also witnessed how one act of injustice could spark change. His father's final words to him summed it up best. Respect is priceless, son, and those who forget it will always pay the price. And that's how one shocking slap brought an entire airline to its knees. It's a powerful reminder that respect costs nothing, but arrogance can cost everything. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.